Boy, John, we had a special guest today. It's a little daunting in a way, frankly, because some people that know both of this guest and myself would probably wonder why they haven't been on our show before yet. And I think it's a little daunting. I mean, our next guest is a celebrity, basically. I mean, he's a vice presidential candidate, and
we keep moving up in the world. Yeah. Or somewhere, I may not the world.
I mean, I think he knows at least 3,000 people on a close, intimate basis. No, I mean, intimate, it sounds kind of strange. But anyway, without further ado, our special guest today is Mr. David Daniels.
Hello.
Hooray!
With that lead in there, probably thought it was John Kerry or something, but
that was last week. No, John Kerry.
Wait, he never ran for vice president, did he?
No, I don't know. Just presidency.
Yeah. No. Whoops. Okay, that was not a good analogy.
All but it was John a reference. Kerry fans are gonna get you.
Oh no, they did it. The John Kerry fans are circling the building. We're going to keep on going here, though. This is episode 79 with special guest David Daniels. Time to lean, and here's a song. Phil and John are your hosts. I'll hold down the fort. Hello, Mr. Daniels. How are you today?
I'm doing well. It's in the low 70s here in Denver, Colorado.
Nice.
Took my usual 420 walk along Sloan's Lake in Denver, beautiful lake. You know what's funny? Here I've been, though I've gone back and forth between the two. I've spent the better part of the last 20 years in Minneapolis and St. Paul, where the land of 10,000 lakes. What do? I moved back to Colorado, and I'm near one of the few lakes in the area.
You just can't escape the lake thing.
You can take the man out of the lake, but you can't take the man out of the lake. No.
Yeah.
That's a terrible saying. Strike that. Reverse it.
It sounds somewhat sinister, actually.
You can't take a man out of a lake. Oh,
but you can take a lady out of a lake? No, in a lake. Sorry.
No, just your sword.
Cut that out.
Well, Dave, why don't you... I'm guessing we'll have a few more listeners today than normal but on this episode. But why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself? I didn't have a great introduction there, but...
Well, I mean...
I know, where do you start, right? That's the other
exactly,
thing. You've lived like 4 or 5 lives already, so...
There was the born and raised in Hartford, Connecticut spot. There was the years in Alaska, including time in a Christian commune in Palmer, Alaska. In fact, the farm in which I lived in was only a few miles away from the person who became Sarah Palin's husband.
Oh, Todd.
Yeah, from Alaska was New York City. Talk about culture shock.
And also a Christian group there, though, right?
Yeah. But then from there, it was Denver, Colorado. 1980 was the year. 87, I did a crazy thing and ran for mayor of Denver. Got something like 600 votes, but it was amazing the media coverage that I got during that race. Russell Means from the American Indian Movement came to Denver on my behalf.
Oh, that's great.
Who was the one? Who was the person who ran against the '80s Denver guy? I can't remember his name now offhand.
The incumbent mayor was Federico Pena.
Yeah,
I remember.
Later on, became Bill Clinton's Secretary of Transportation.
Yeah,
yep.
I remember him from cable TV growing up.
All right, we've talked about that on the channel before. We reminisce about '80s things, and we did get one.
The
Denver
idea
channel.
of big TV was Denver local stations. But no, I remember Pena.
And let's see. After that,
So
Boy.
then that race led to a meeting with my childhood, one of my childhood heroes, Senator Eugene McCarthy. As a seventh grader, I spent time stuffing envelopes and passing out leaflets for Gene's anti-war campaign, and then later on, kind of developed somewhat of a correspondence. My early attempts at poetry, but
Yeah.
then we were only on the ballot, at least with my name, in only 2 states. But I was a candidate for vice president with Gene McCarthy, and that actually led to me moving to Minneapolis.
And that's where I met you. And some other things happened in there too. But yeah, quite a few
A
things.
couple.
But so Dave and I met at Barnes and Noble Cafe, or maybe should I even say that? No, in
Well, it's
downtown
not like you work
Minneapolis.
for them now, Phil. That's
No,
okay.
although I might still have a pension. I got to look into that. I might get like
From the barista managers union.
well, I think I'm going up for like $25 to $50, or maybe $100 a year or
Okay,
something like that.
don't mess with your nest egg there, Phil.
No, yeah,
Yeah, we were the morning team.
yeah, we were the Dave and Phil show. We were there bright and early every morning, and Monday through Friday, usually dishing out the coffee, and we'd remember people's drinks, of course, and talk a little bit. And I don't know,
Cast of
sales.
characters who would come in, regulars.
Oh yeah, the
And this was the coffee shop in the downtown Minneapolis Barnes and Noble.
Yeah.
yeah,
Right.
which was an odd duck in the Barnes and Noble world. I mean, they didn't seem to quite know what to do with us. We'd have different problems than the other stores would. Like every now and then, we'd have to have the chairs fumigated for lice, and maybe the one in Egan doesn't. But that's fine. Oh boy, the characters there. What? Well, anyway, so I became a manager, and Dave was my assistant manager, and we weren't like trying to push things, but the sales kept going up, and it was starting to get a little recognized there. Not that this is all about sales, but yeah, some of the characters. What are some of the characters you remember the most there?
Well, right now I'm thinking about a character who we used in our radio drama that we wrote later, scenes from a reggae western.
Yeah, it's
And
on YouTube. It's on YouTube.
Yep. And there was a security guy, and I think in the drama we call him Sheriff Larry.
Yeah,
Uh,
yeah. I don't remember what his real name was.
no,
Maybe it was Larry.
but
Oh yeah,
kind of a redneck guy. I don't know whether he had spent much time in the city prior to that, because everything seemed to be an emergency.
oh, he'd get wound up. Well, that was easy to develop into a character. I'm going to get him.
Yeah.
But
So
I think a lot.
he talked like Roscoe P. Coltrane.
Well,
from Hazard.
the on scenes of a reggae western, I will definitely
Oh, I'm
admit.
sorry.
No, I'm just saying that we did develop this into a character, and it did sound a little like Roscoe P. Coltrane.
No, it's a good voice.
I'm going to get him.
Yeah.
I remember. Oh, there was a cowboy too. There was the cowboy. Remember Cowboy? I don't know if you remember him. He would steal stuff from the store and then sell it over at the Crystal Caverns or whatever it's called.
I don't remember that.
Maybe that was after you were there. Cowboy. He had a cowboy hat and boots, and yeah, he'd steal stuff from. Well, anyway.
And then he worked for Caribou and went over there and
Well, Dave moved over to Caribou for a while. That's a different story.
Yeah.
oh, whoops. Jumping ahead here.
Well, shortly after that. Well, that's where we got to know each other. Well, there were other characters like Howard, who would do film reviews for, I believe, a local newspaper, and he'd kind of hold court, and he had a different cast of characters that would sit around with him, and they'd debate things, and
Sometimes
every now and then.
heated.
Oh yeah, I'd have to go over there every now and then. Yeah, keep it down a little bit, but that was good times. And we have, of course, some of the characters that we worked with, too. I mean, kind of a hillbilly punk guy. Can't remember his name.
Chris.
There's a lot of characters.
Hillbilly punk.
Yeah. Punkabilly? Rockabilly punk or something. Not hillbilly. Sorry.
And there was the
gathering.
actor, the performance crew when it was yourself and Colleen Cruz and myself. We all
yeah, Colleen was there for a while.
Yep.
We haven't had her on yet. That's another celebrity around here. Well, you've been active in, so at some point, so you moved back to Minneapolis and wait, hold on. We're breaking our repertoire here or whatever. Our format.
Format. Do we need to?
We need to
get to business.
This is the time of the show where we talk about what we're drinking normally.
Yeah.
Okay.
And I'll go first. I'm just drinking Evan Williams Kentucky bourbon. So they're not sorry, John, not bottled in bond. It's just regular.
The black label.
Black label.
Okay. Yeah.
All right.
Well,
I am drinking Elijah Craig Barrel Proof. For anybody who's into that stuff, it's batch A121, which means it's the first quarter of the year in the year of 2021.
In the year of our Lord.
And it's barrel proof, so there's definitely water in this one.
You're adding water.
I added some water.
Yeah, it doesn't come with it. Well, no, of course. They'll have
It's
water.
still got, 40% water.
I'm drinking fermented water.
I'm having some water. Yeah, so that's what I have drinking at Neat.
Well, Dave, it's 5:20 our time and it's 4:20 your time, so I don't know.
I'm just now noticing that. Yes.
Hey.
Well, the problem is, in my apartment, I am not permitted to do my usual 420 routines.
Well, you went to the lake early.
Yes, I did. But at the moment, I'm about ready to break open a gummy that you can buy here in Colorado. In fact, there's a dispensary right across the street from my apartment.
All right. What's that one called? Or is it? That's not a Willie Nelson gummy. I'm just kidding.
It's Taste Buds, it's called.
Yeah.
And each piece carries 50 milligrams of THC.
All right. What flavor is it?
It's a cherry.
Cherry.
Oh,
okay.
yes.
It's a cherry bomb.
So 15 milligrams.
What are the kind that just got legal out here? I think Dave was teasing us a little bit because it's kind of like the 3-2 beer version.
I think they were 10, weren't they?
10? All right.
I think it's even less than that.
Yeah. Oh, well. Baby steps.
Well, we kind of just stumble into it, apparently.
So when's that going to kick in?
After we're done, I'm guessing. It's funny. We get stuff from a place in Michigan, and they supposedly have a fast acting gummy now, and I'm not sure how that works.
Well, what's that about?
Yeah, I don't know. I just heard about it.
How do they speed it up?
Yeah,
I don't know.
The gummy I'm having, it's usually about 20 minutes or so.
Well, they have all these different strains, though. I don't quite. It's kind of amazing. Like they have the kind to help you sleep, and they have kinds that help you do different things, I guess. But they're probably all variations on relaxing or being more creative. Or I mean, that's kind of why you got into it, though, was for spiritual reasons. I don't know if you want to talk about that a little bit.
Cultural and spiritual. First time I ever smoked marijuana was in the Adirondack Mountains around Lake George. And shortly after that, I began reading Richard Brautigan and Greening of America. And shortly after that, the first time I actually felt something was at an Allman Brothers band show in Hartford, Connecticut, at Dillon Stadium.
Oh.
We covered that Phil directed my one-man piece, Black Hippie Chronicles.
I did. You're easy to direct, that's all I'll say. I think my role was more of a gentle advisor. Dave has all these stories and it's in his shows, and he's got some CDs and things like that, and he's been performing in the Twin Cities and in New York and in Denver, and
Is there a website or anything like that we can put in the show notes?
There's a Facebook page. It's called David Daniels Storytelling, I believe it is.
Excellent. We will definitely put that in there.
We'll
those
get
who want to know more.
We'll get the address and put in the link.
One of those linky poos.
So when you first moved to Minneapolis, man, I don't know, what was that like? I mean,
I know the truth. It was rough.
Yeah.
I didn't know a soul. I was in the middle of a divorce and was staying with a person who I never had met until I knocked on their door. And in fact, it was the great late avant-garde film curator, Sally Dixon.
Wow.
She and her then husband, held me until I kind of got settled. But they had busy lives, so I had to discover the Twin Cities on my own. And one of the big memories was walking into a bar on just off a lake in Chicago. And if there's anyone listening from Denver, lake in Chicago and Minneapolis at one time was a neighborhood where you might want to kind of keep your eyes open.
Is there an equivalent in Denver?
Into a bar and immediately realizing I was in the wrong space. It was first 6 months were actually really rough, and then the winters came and I hated it.
Even though you'd lived in Alaska.
Here's the thing, though. I lived in Alaska and even experienced 56 below zero. Never once got frostbite. My first winter in Minneapolis, and I felt like I knew how to dress. I come back from a long walk and my toes are feeling kind of funny, and the next day I realize I've been frostbitten.
Wow.
Minnesota winters are special.
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 How did you? There are a lot of things I miss about living in Minnesota, but winters aren't one of
them. No. I mean, Denver gets cold, but it's kind of like Rapid City, South Dakota, where you'll get
occasional breaks. Yeah, that's what makes a big difference.
Although it seems like their weather is becoming a little bit more like ours, or vice versa.
Oh, Rapid City is. I swear, yeah. I swear it used to be better.
It's like it's even getting a little humid sometimes. But how did you get into this reggae theater, spoken word? How did that all happen?
Well, it began as an outgrowth of the plays that I wrote, which began as an outgrowth of a rebellion from the time working with the Playwright Center. I was part of an African American writers workshop, and at the time, I had been on a 7-year writers block, and I just became a part of this group just to be around writers. The only other things I had written previous were editorial type writings. Uh, so we were scheduled to do a reading at the Walker Art Center. At the last moment, in fact, I believe in somewhere in my papers, I still have the brochure talking about this reading. It was going to be in honor of Malcolm X. The reading was canceled. The folks that I had collected to do the reading were pissed, and so was I.
Yeah.
So we put it upon ourselves to cast it at the Cedar Cultural Center. Then from there,
a great venue.
Yeah. From that point, unexpectedly, it ended up here in Denver, and actually, got huge response.
Which play was that? Which reading was that? Was that Malcolm X meets Peter Tosh?
Yeah.
Yeah, sure.
Did one other play in Denver before returning to Minneapolis. It's called I, Edgar Hoover. Dealing with the FBI. Maybe if Donald Trump had watched the play, maybe he would have been a little bit more careful.
It was called I, Edgar Hoover?
Agency.
Yeah, I Edgar Hoover.
It was a play off, the Rasta I and I, I Edgar Hoover.
Okay.
And it was a production of something, the Reggae Theater Ensemble, which developed as a result of Malcolm X meets Peter Tosh and the success they had in Denver and in Minneapolis.
What was the show you took to New York on they had a Fringe Festival or something like that? Was
that
before all this, or was that?
No, that was afterwards.
Okay.
That was my first one-man play. It's called Colorado: A Western Tale. I played 5 characters in that from a Bronco fan, and that was very folks didn't know at that time how easy a role that was to play.
Oh, Dave is a very avid. Dave is a contradiction in some ways because he's got the hippie thing going on, but he's also got this really aggressive football thing going on, and he's got friends from all. I'm on Facebook with him, and he's got friends from all over the political spectrum and whatever spectrums, all over the spectrums of light and darkness. But he throws them off sometimes because he's like, fuck the Vikings. He's like, and they're like, oh, it's so violent. Football is violent. I don't like violence. Oh no, I should cut this out because some of these people will be listening, but I'm not making fun of you. I'm just saying it throws people off. What were some of the other? So you did 5 characters. What were the other ones? I know.
There was a rancher. That was kind of like my favorite character to play in the piece. There was a mystic. There was who I called the Boulder Dread Deadhead.
Yeah.
And there was a storytelling scene where I'm myself.
You played yourself.
Yeah. It ran at the
based on you.
It ran at the New Eurekan Poets Cafe during the first New York Fringe, which for me was quite an honor. I mean, I performed in the Minnesota Fringe, but one difference here's New York, the theater capital of the world, and here's this rebel Rasta reggae piece, and the New York Fringe was your acceptance was through a panel jury.
Not a lottery system.
Not a lottery system, no.
Yeah.
Or first come, first serve. And that play there were, I believe, something like 800 applicants. 150 were accepted from around the world, and that piece was one of them.
What year was that?
That had to be, I want to say 1987. No, 97.
Wait a
97.
minute. Right. So you lived in New York during the Son of Sam stuff, right?
Yeah, they're in the crazy 70s.
I forgot
You
about
know.
that. So that was before you went back. We're time jumping here, folks, but
Yeah,
that's okay.
exactly. Well,
Oh my God.
yeah.
No, I just remembered you talking about the Son of Sam stuff and the. Oh my God.
Well, before you get into that, I have one thing that since we're jumping around, you mentioned that the first political activity you did was running for mayor of Denver, right?
Yeah, uh-huh.
And what I'm
As a
curious,
candidate.
what inspired you to do that at the time? Was there a certain thing that really motivated you, or was it just
He wanted to pick up
sounds like fun?
ladies.
Yeah,
There,
yeah. I
there,
mean, that's a reason too.
there were a lot of things going on behind that decision, particularly when I look back at it. I had, I grew up in a political household and was basically an aspiring politician in Alaska when I dropped out. Uh, and
So you thought
so,
you'd make a go of it as a
yeah, um,
one of them
actually,
career
the story
politicians.
the story went there was a famed pizza place. They're just in the mountains or in a couple of places called Bojo's in Denver. But at the time, they had a Bojo's restaurant just on Colfax Avenue in Denver. Doug Anderson and myself were talking about the possible candidates for mayor of Denver, and we didn't like any of them. We looked at and Doug's not a drinker. I have a pitcher of beer, and so now the pitcher is getting close to the end. Uh, we knew it took only 300 signatures to get on the ballot. We flipped a coin. I was the mayoral candidate, and Doug became the candidate for Denver election commissioner.
And how did that work out?
Doug
He
became the
won.
first non-Democrat or Republican ever to win major office in Denver.
Oh, really well. Yeah.
Yeah,
Dave is an independent in many respects, not just politically. A libertarian, I guess you'd say, right?
yeah. I had the endorsement of the Libertarian Party running for mayor. Now, when I ran for was a candidate for the U.S. Senate in Minnesota in 2000, I was endorsed by the Grassroots Party, which
Yep.
was the party
And
that has
they
spearheaded
now have
legalization efforts in Minnesota. What's
yeah,
that?
and they and another party have major party status here.
Yep. I'm quite aware of that. The Grassroots
Yeah,
and
yeah. No,
Legal
that's
Marijuana Now
wild.
Party.
Yeah.
Well, back then you ran against. Okay. I remember the debate. I don't remember where that was. It was
It
on the
was at the University
campus.
of Minnesota, wasn't it?
Yeah, but I can't remember what room it was in. Um, was it Willie Hall? I don't
I
know.
think
The
so.
Anyway,
Justice Academy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Uh-huh.
so yeah, I work at the University of Minnesota, so you think I'd remember this, and John used to. But so Dave Daniels is running for governor against
Senate.
Mark Senate. Sorry,
Yeah.
it'll make more sense by confusion in a minute. But Senate against Mark Dayton and some other folks, and
Rod Grams.
Oh, Rod Graham's right.
oh yeah,
Jesus. Okay.
and the moderator was Jesse Ventura.
He was the moderator.
Yeah, what a moderator, huh? Well, he was the governor at the time, so I guess they
Yeah.
wanted to give him a bone.
But isn't that strange though that he would be the moderator?
He
Well, it
did
was
a pretty good
because
job.
he was a third party governor, and he wanted to insist on having all the third party candidates. And it was the one debate where all the third party candidates were there with the Democrat and Republican.
Yeah, I can say why
Normally
he
they
would.
would have skipped.
Yeah.
Normally Dayton and Grams would have skipped a debate like that, but with Jesse running sky high in popularity, they weren't going to do anything to piss Jesse off.
No, I can see that. Yeah. It's just interesting that a sitting politician, an office holder, would actually moderate a debate.
Well,
That's something you don't see
Jesse
much at all.
was an entity unto himself, so it still is. But so I remember the time. Let's see, Dayton said something, and you reacted.
I
That
told him
was
he
a kind of
lied. You know, he didn't have an understanding of the Constitution.
What was the one time where you kind of get real or something?
That,
It
that,
was like
that was
a
another thing in that debate. I can't remember the specifics when
no, I
I
can't.
but I put my arm on Dayton, which drew Jesse's attention. But I just said, Mark, just be real.
Yeah, because he was trying to, I personally I liked Mark Dayton fine, but he was kind of stilted, I guess is the word. But so I think you were, in a way, you were trying to help him. But Jesse's like, don't touch the other candidates. But then he got you a glass of water, so that was interesting. I don't know. It was an interesting dynamic. See, there's so many things like this. That's why I was like, God, how do you have Dave Daniels as a guest? You could go here, you could go there, you could go over there. But
He's an endless Venn diagram. Yeah.
that was an interesting race, though, because you got way more votes than
At the time, it was
even that party was expecting.
yeah. Of course, what I remember that night, I was living in a space in Prospect Park neighborhood in Minneapolis, and it seemed like, well, a lot of my campaign help came from the West Bank of Minneapolis, and specifically folks from the Hard Times Cafe. And on election night, a bunch of folks came over for election night's kind of celebration. And I always thought to myself, if I had by chance won, I may have been arrested on the spot because that was a very smoke-filled room.
I was there.
And it
Yeah.
was tobacco.
So somebody was looking at I remember the computer was going and we kept looking at it, and we were like, every now and then you'd get like these votes way up somewhere out of the middle of nowhere. We're like, wow. That was fun to watch those results come in. I guess you got a little flack though, because you ventured a little bit away from the main topic of the party. It was kind of a one issue party, but you brought in some other elements there.
I did campaign on a specific proposal on legalizing marijuana, which was in Alaska adopted and supported by both the Green Party and the Libertarian parties there. But yeah, I also just talked about the corporate welfare, which is still going on in this country. And I talked about the dangers of militarism, which we're seeing today. But yeah, I mean, I wasn't bringing I wasn't turning every issue into a marijuana referendum.
Yeah.
And that was a little bit different than most grassroots party candidates at the time.
Yeah.
But I feel like the results prove themselves.
Well,
And speaking of that, we've talked a little bit about this, but I know I talked to other people in South Dakota, of course, where Phil and I are from, and you're probably aware of the kind of messed up way that their legalization efforts have gone and were sabotaged by the governor and everything, the state Supreme Court and all that kind of thing. And apparently it's back on the ballot again this fall. Do you feel like it's going to succeed this time there?
I do. Time's on the side of legalization now.
yeah.
Of course, Colorado was the state to lead the way.
I feel like it's definitely one of those issues. If it can do as well as it did in a mostly one party state like South Dakota, because that it's got some broad appeal there.
I just have to say though, Western South Dakota, in my opinion, has always been a little bit more libertarian than the East Side. The East side
it's more like Wyoming, Montana, blah 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 type of people.
Yeah. Nothing against those type of people, and we shouldn't call them blah 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 people, John. That's like saying deplorables. No, I'm sorry.
But is it a basket of deplorables? Sorry. Too soon.
It takes a village of deplorables. No, so
Title. Nope. Sorry.
By the way,
No, I find
the taste bud gummies are beginning to I'm beginning to feel its effect.
all right, let's talk about Son of Sam. No, I'm sorry.
Yeah.
No,
No,
I'm sorry.
that's a
That's
good
not
segue.
nice. My experiences with marijuana, which aren't extensive, involved paranoia. And I think, I remember in Brookings, South Dakota, probably the third time or something I smoked marijuana, I was like, oh, everybody knows I'm stoned. And I put sunglasses on, even though it was night. Because I don't want them to see my eyes. They're going to know I'm stoned. Oh, I'm stoned. I was just so paranoid.
Are you trying to do George Carlin there or something, Phil?
Shit, fuck, damn. I'm going to play George Carlin on a biopic. Hey, if anybody's listening, I'll play George Carlin on a... No. Anyway.
Or $10.
For no, God. My rates have gone way up now after the New Yorker article. But somebody told me, they're like, well, that's because it was illegal. And I don't know if the theory is that...
That's a long time ago, too. But
right.
back to the South Dakota thing real quick. So my mom, but she basically said that she feels like the governor there went after this mostly because she didn't think she'd have enough time to profit on it, and wanted to slow it down until she and her cronies could figure out a way.
I've heard that from other people, and I don't know, is that a weird South Dakota conspiracy theory?
Well, I think the state government there is well known for its grift, but
yeah, true.
Yeah,
The state of
it's
Colorado had to get their hands on it in some ways, So,
but it's not quite going where it was supposed to.
Well,
but okay. So here's another tangent. I guess the reservations. I mean, they have their own deals going on there, and I know you mentioned Russell Means, I think, before, but or did you mention someone else?
I mentioned Russell.
Yeah. So he came to support you. I think you met him. Your paths crossed several times. This may not be a this may not be a popular topic for some of our South Dakota listeners. But what was your experience with Russell Means?
Like I said, I met him Fort Collins, Colorado. This is when I was running as a candidate for mayor, and he said that he will come to Denver on my behalf, which he did, along with Dennis Banks from the American Indian Movement.
Dennis Banks.
And
yeah.
Professor Ward Churchill at the time at the University of Colorado, Glenn Morris from the Colorado AIM. It was pretty big headlines for a third-party candidate who had very little chance of winning.
You had a lot of media coverage then.
Yeah. And Russell, at the time when he endorsed me, was a candidate for the Libertarian Party presidential nomination.
That's right.
Running against former Republican Congressman Ron Paul. So,
yeah,
who you worked for?
I jumped on the Russell Means bandwagon and actually went to the Libertarian National Convention as a delegate for Russell Means. In fact, I gave the roll call. I used to always see on TV, these folks, the great state of New Mexico.
when you watch the conventions.
Yeah.
So, of course, I had to make some folks mad by saying, other states, soon to be Super Bowl champion Denver Broncos with the great John Elway.
Somebody's going to get mad at that.
But,
although John Elway was pretty good at the last 4 minutes of each game, but yeah.
I was kind of like one of Russell's assistants on the floor at that convention. But then later on, Russell ended up in film and in movies, and in the Disney film Pocahontas, Russell portrayed Pocahontas' dad. Some folks know I have a daughter. She's grown now with her own children. But at the time, as she was growing up, I would tell her things like, I taught Michael Jordan everything that he knew about basketball. Of course, she wasn't going to believe me. But she loved the movie, and then I found Russell was going to be in town. I was in Denver. This is in Denver, so I get a hold of Russell and say I'm going to bring my daughter down because that day I tell her, well, we're gonna meet Pocahontas' dad. Of course, after talking all this stuff about Michael Jordan, she's not believing me at all.
Like, oh, whatever.
Yeah. So we go up to Russell, and immediately Russell goes into some of the lines from Pocahontas.
Oh my God. Oh
So
no.
it gave for a little while, a renewed sense of doubt. Maybe Dad did help Michael Jordan out.
It's all worth that.
When you talk about politics, though, I mean, and I mean, your mom was really politically active, and I'm not saying she was grooming you for a political candidacy, but she probably was. I don't know if you'd phrase it that way.
I was, even as a third grader, I was deeply impacted by John Kennedy's assassination. At the time, there were a lot of bad things going on in my life at the time when I was in third grade, and so I could kind of relate to the sense of grief that I was experiencing. Folks who seemed to love John Kennedy, and I could seem to I had a sense of the hate because I had experienced violence and hate in some ways at that time. So I said maybe the way to help out was going to be by maybe I should run for president. And I said from that time on, I was going to run for president. I was going to be a candidate for president. Well, this is early '60s. There was a degree of self-hatred going on in the black community at the time, and the thought of a black man becoming president seemed just out of hand for many folks. And I got berated and teased a lot for that. But my mom just said, "Well, if you're going to be president, this is what you're going to have to do," and kind of laid out a program to set me up to be in position to run for president. One of the greatest memories I have of my mom was, my grandparents lived in Washington D.C. and we used to spend our summers there. Mom took me to the 1964 Democratic Platform Committee meetings on the day when the civil rights platform was going to be discussed and debated.
Jeez.
One of the first person I got to meet was Ellie Abel, who at the time was working for NBC News, and I got the tour of how the media covered an event like that. Well, the next person I got to meet from that point after his speech was Dr. Martin Luther King, thanks to my mom.
Jesus.
Wow. Oh, that's amazing.
Who also got assassinated, but man.
Yeah. And the other thing is, like, 5 minutes after meeting Dr. King, I'm walking down the hallway with my mom. Next thing you know, she's jerking me aside, and I'm looking up, and there's Bobby Kennedy walking by. And according to my mom, I wasn't watching where I was going, and neither was he. Secret Service pulled him aside. His mom was pulling me aside.
She was your Secret Service.
Yeah.
I guess I phrased it wrong. She wasn't grooming you for this. She was like, "This is what my kid wants to do. Here's the steps that you need to do that." That's a mom thing, or a parent thing, not just moms. I know you went a little astray from where she was thinking, but
there was going to be no guarantee I was going to win anyhow. And so, in some ways, even though it's a long way around, I did run for office, and I lost. So,
in a parallel universe, though, Dave, your you were the first black president. I'm convinced of that.
In the world.
Sometimes we have these contemplative moments. I think I need a little break. Do we need a break? We're on a break. Take a break. Break it down. Taking a break. Taking a break. Break it down. Hey, we're back.
On the flip side,
Side B.
welcome to, as my brother would say, welcome to hour 8 of Times Clean.
Oh, we get a little flack. That's fine. We like the flack attack, flack right back. Mr. Daniels. So you've done, oh my goodness, I forgot. You got to work with Charlie Parr. What was that like?
There's a story to that too.
Well, you got to work with him more than once, but yeah, okay.
Got to meet him in an uptown Minneapolis basement where a recording of, we were doing this internet radio program, Twin Cities Radio Music on the Net with the late Jazzy
Oh,
J.
yeah.
That's how I met him. At that time, Charlie was getting known in the Twin Cities, but wasn't in Europe. But I spun some stories. Charlie played tunes. He said, I told him I loved his music. He said he loved my stories, and from that point on, we said we were going to do something together. First time we did something was like 10, 12 years ago in Duluth that we called Adventures in Music and Storytelling.
Right.
But then a couple of years back, we went into the studio, and Charlie provided the background music for my storytelling piece that I call Annie Jones. It's a story about baseball and family.
Yeah. Oh, that's a good piece. Are you still in touch with Charlie Parr? I know you see him at concerts and stuff, but
We email from time to time. He's busy. He's on the road. Sometimes that's the time I get to see him now at concerts. In fact, one of the last
I
time
know.
I was in Minneapolis, he was playing at Palmer's, and I can't not go to Minneapolis and not spend time in Palmer's bar.
Well, you have huge West Bank connections. What the new Riv, right? Was that the Riverside Cafe?
The new Riverside Cafe is the biomagnetic center of the universe. Worker run, worker owned, and at the time, one of the pioneer vegetarian restaurants.
And perhaps some of your recipes were stolen by the Moosewood something or
We
other.
won't talk about that.
No, okay, sorry.
Oh, that's a famous cookbook, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Well, maybe we won't get into that.
Maybe it shouldn't be so famous.
We're gonna get litigated.
Yeah.
But by the Moosewood Mafia. No, but you got to meet a lot of people would go there. Paul Wellstone, for one, I guess. But
Yeah, he was a fairly regular customer when he was in town. We debate issues, and he would still ask me how I felt about certain things.
he was a different kind of politician, though. I mean, it wasn't like, and it was a different time too. But he really liked to listen to different people's opinions.
He
wouldn't
certainly seemed to
necessarily
listen
agree
to
with
mine. He did have an ear to mine, even though a lot of times I was bringing up issues that we disagreed on.
Sure.
But Lou Bellamy from Penumbra Theater, Terry Bellamy actor from Penumbra, and Lou's brother became a regular at the New Riverside Cafe and was very much involved in the crafting of my Malcolm X meets Peter Tosh piece after we decided we were going to put it stage it.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, yeah. Uh, the dub reggae poet Muta Baruka, the Riverside Cafe was the only restaurant he said he would step foot in. He had a very very strict vegan diet. Again, we were pioneers. The Riverside also was one of the centerpieces of the folk scene in Minneapolis. The folk scene that spawned Dylan.
Well,
Kerner
they had a
Ray and
little
Glover
stage there.
were regulars at the New Riverside Cafe. In fact, Spider John married a cafe worker. It was more than a restaurant. It really was, a community experience.
It's sort of some of that transferred over to Hard Times, but Hard Times has got kind of it's got the, I don't want to say punk, but I mean it's got
Well, it's
maybe,
got,
but
different generation form. A
sure,
little harder edge, but still, worker owned, worker run, like the New Rev was.
yeah. Some of that energy went over there a little bit, but it changed. It was there still too, though, I guess. But and Palmer's is its own thing. I'm glad that got to keep alive. I was worried about that for a while there. It was going under, but the new guy, whose name I can't remember, has got it, keeps it going. And Charlie Parr shows up there every now and then. What are your feelings about the West Bank now, though? It's changed a little bit.
Not as much as the East Bank.
Changed, but in a weird way, it's still keeping with its history.
That's true.
The West Bank had at different times in its history housed various immigrants, and that's the case now. At
It's just a
other
different
times,
set.
it tended to have the carry the outside element. Everything from the bootlegging during the days of prohibition to the old counterculture where the New Riverside Cafe was a part of, and folks that were I was here only at the tail end, but there's some folks that could tell you some stories about the drugstore that sold drugs.
It was literally a drugstore.
Yeah. Uh,
The Cedar Cultural Center's there. I remember, speaking of Jesse Ventura, one of my Jesse Ventura stories. I don't know if I have many, but I remember seeing Warren Zevon, or Zevon, I don't know however people want to pronounce it, at the Cedar Cultural Center. And this was shortly after Jesse Ventura was elected governor. My brother Blake and I were there, and there were other people in the audience, but Jesse Ventura was probably a couple seats behind us. Anyway, so that was he came in kind of a different way in the back. I never knew there was a door there, but whatever. And he loves Warren Zevon. He's even sang, or some would say tried to sing one of his songs at his inaugural ball when he became governor. Warren Zevon is playing, and the Cedar Cultural Center, for those that don't know, it's just a rectangle basically, and you're in chairs, but you can get pretty close to the performer, and they fit quite a few people in there, but it's an intimate venue, I guess is what I'd say. I've seen Loudon Wainwright there and that. And anyway, I don't know if he was changing a string that he broke or tuning or something. And people start saying, hey, play blah, 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 play this, play that. And Jesse was like, let him play what he wants. So, and everybody, Blake and I just laughed. It was hilarious. But anyway,
That's a good story. Is that the same gig where he yelled at you, "Where's the sound man?"
no, that was Loud and Wainwright.
Oh, I'm sorry.
No, that,
I don't
yeah,
get them confused, but
my,
yeah,
my, my,
I love Wainwright.
I don't have as many brushes with fame as David does, but that was a fine line, and at a Loud and Wainwright concert, and I
He
had
was
flannel on.
disappointed with you because you were not the sound man.
No, I had flannel on, so he assumed I was a sound guy. That was 90s or something. I don't think that gig was going well for Loudon. He seemed frustrated. I thought it was a good concert, but then this lady, this tells you how frustrated he was with the gig. This lady was up front with a guy, maybe her husband or something. I don't know what's going on, but she had very large breasts. That's all I'll say. But anyway, so she wanted his autograph or something. He was like, "No, I don't do that," and he left. And I'm like, that doesn't seem like Loudon Wainwright, but whatever. That's a different story.
Oh, you
We,
talk about the doors at the Cedar Cultural Center. Like I said, the first time Malcolm X Meet Peter Tosh was staged at the Cedar Cultural Center, and the revised script after. Oh, here's the story. The reading that was going to take place at the Walker Art Center only carried references to marijuana. When it was going to be staged and rewrites and uh, was encouraged to put it all out there, the script called for 5 joints to be smoked, and
5,
yeah,
not 4.
one was
It's
going to
three.
go out in the audience. Well,
Well,
we
you have to
knew that
share.
there was a risk that perhaps we could possibly get arrested for this, but uh, Mitch Olson, my assistant and also a cast
Oh,
member,
Mitch. There's so
uh,
many stories about Mitch too. The angry
uh,
one.
but anyhow, we spent as much time diagramming and practicing escape routes should the cops show up, including putting we knew there was a fence behind the back door of the theater, and we even had it planned out. We put a box so we could just jump the fence.
You're rehearsing the escape route. I haven't
Yeah.
done that in most plays, but fine.
uh, we thought maybe because we were new at this, we were hoping maybe at best there might be 30 or 40 people that show up, and there was going to be plenty of room to maneuver. The Cedar Cultural Center was packed that night. Before we went on stage, I turned over to Mitch. I said, "I think we're going to jail tonight." Because our escape routes were there was just no way it was going to happen. More people showed up than we ever anticipated. But just like Peter Tosh, not go to jail. Nothing happened. Looking at the videotape they had at the time, I didn't miss the line either. That was I. Before that, I there were plenty of times that there were I had been in a few pieces, so I had learned lines before, and in my day I have smoked plenty of marijuana. That was going to be the first time of combining the two. There was no way of using that much to rehearse, so it was going to have to happen on that night.
Oh, remembering lines. I
But
don't know if I could do it anymore.
that was the Cedar Cultural Center back door.
John is more, well, maybe I won't say that, but more politically minded than I am. I mean, that's not true. Maybe he
Well, I don't
watches
know
them.
about that.
You watch MSNBC more than I do. Well, what?
That's not a good thing, though.
No,
Well,
it's like the Fox News for the left, but maybe I don't know. It's not as
I've
bad,
been
but
trying to cut back. I have get
oh, sure.
get too much. What's Trump up to now?
There's a
News.
lot of hyperbole there. I mean, I watch on YouTube sometimes. They're like, so and so nails blah blah blah. But
Yeah,
what?
usually
So
not.
so
Done. But you were also
Yes.
part of a show that Phil was a part of too at the 7th Street entry.
I remember that. Yeah, that's we've quoted one throwaway line maybe in there where Phil yells out, "You can't make love to no Beck." And wasn't that the show where we did come together,
yeah, that was we
Sean?
did so basically yeah, Sean.
I'm probably combining two
No,
things, but
no, that was it.
okay. And it was the weirdest reaction I've ever seen
The
in an
the seventh
audience.
the Seventh Street entry is next door to First Avenue, which Dave Daniels has opened for somebody else. I can't remember the name of that artist.
Oh,
Quentin.
there was a time I opened for Reg Ayers Tippa Irie. There was
Yeah, or
another
the one.
time, a couple of times with Bob Marley, biographer and archivist Roger Steffens. I was most honored to open for dub poet Linton Kwesi Johnson from England.
Yes, yes, that I saw that one. Oh my God, that was incredible.
And
Oof.
then the
Anyway,
Wailers.
next door, next door. Here we are. But yeah, the
That's
Seventh Street
yeah,
entry. So
which is quite small.
yeah, I mean, Dave got this thing together. It was like various artists, and I thought we'll do the Segway Cabaret in the middle, and we had three pieces, and one of them was the one that John mentioned. But I yeah, we had every kind of reaction you could imagine. That was an interesting night. I'd never been there before, and there was kind of a dungeon almost down below. And I went down there to because we had to wait a while before we came on. And there was a weird little room I don't know, way down below the 7th Street entry. It's kind of spooky. I don't know what was going on down there, but I left right away. But yeah, so what did we do there? We did the Segway Cabaret. So we had that scene, the bus scene, because that was
Yeah.
well, that was based on an actual thing that happened on a bus. This guy just got up and said, we're going to have to edit this pause out while I try to remember because I'm getting old and I've had whiskeys.
Kidding.
We won't edit this probably. So this guy got up and just started saying, I know you want to leave me, but I refuse to let you go. That kind of prompted this whole thing. I didn't know that was an actual Motown, or not, maybe not Motown, but that's an actual song.
Yeah, that's right.
I didn't know that at the time. I thought this was just a guy getting up on the bus singing. So I referenced that. And we had two other segments. What were those?
Did that include Sean singing?
Well, yes, Sean did the Come Together, the Beatles.
What was the third?
So Sean sang that we did kind of a country come together.
Yeah.
Yeah, there was a third thing. Oh my God.
That's the one I can't remember. It was sure a fun time to go do that though.
It was weird. I think
I'll always remember it.
yeah, no, I'm not going to forget that even if I have Alzheimer's and whatever else. But it was
You'll just wander around the old folks' home, quote, yelling that
I know
out.
you want to leave me. The song doesn't sound quite like that. Whatever. Yeah, there was a third segment. Oh no. The narrator
The
will help us.
narrator will always fix it. Ed, save us.
Ed. Dear Lord. Dave, I don't know. I don't know where to we could go into 100 different things from now on. Sorry, I need to reconnect myself.
Send Phil back for regrooving.
I need to regroup with the Matrix.
That's regrooving.
Yeah, I'm not very.
Groovy.
So, Dave, okay, here we go. What were
right.
some of your influences growing up?
I could probably start family-wise with mom and grandparents. Eugene McCarthy for his courage to speak out against the war in Vietnam and run for president.
I was a McGovern guy, but that's okay.
Well, this is 68 was before McGovern, 72. I
Yeah,
actually
okay,
worked
well.
for McGovern too.
Okay,
But
there's that.
Muhammad Ali,
Oof. Muhammad Ali.
another one.
Holy shit. Where do you even start with Muhammad Ali? I just remember the only time I remember my dad and my grandpa drinking beer, we had this little tiny black and white TV and we had a huge living room. But, there was a Muhammad Ali fight. I don't know which one it was, but that was the only time I remember my grandpa and my dad drinking beer. We get sit around and we watched this Muhammad Ali fight. But where do you even start with that guy?
Well, I could start in intertwined story 64, fighting Sonny Liston, and Muhammad versus and this is he's still Cassius Clay at the time, and he's going off. I am the greatest. And this is I remember in my household. This is kind of irritating my mom, who grew up in the era of Joe Louis and the nice and mannerly, polite black man, humble all the time, and now here's this Muhammad Ali or Cassius Clay at the time.
Not humble. Not
Saying, I am the greatest, I'm going to knock him out, and of course, I'm immediately taking if this is something that mom's not liking, I have to like it, so immediately I take to Muhammad Ali.
Hey, you, a natural born rebel.
But, Sonny Liston, he was powerful, so it was amazing to see, Clay knock him out, and that's shortly after that. That's when he declared himself as Muhammad Ali. Watched a lot of his fights, and then he stripped of his crown for resisting the draft.
Yeah. Well, that probably touched a nerve with you or whatever. Your rebellious streak, anti-war stuff.
I'll put it this way: Selective Service. I didn't give up. Selective Service had a hard time with me, or I gave the Selective Service a hard time before it finally breaks.
That whole thing. My dad, and I don't know if he doesn't claim he claims this didn't happen in this order, but it feels like my mom got pregnant at that stage where if you were going to have a kid, you couldn't be drafted. And I was born. And there was a couple other things after that. He doesn't claim it was that. He claims it wasn't that systematic. But I'm just saying, he seemed to kind of touch those times.
So I feel like you're a draft dodger, baby. Is that what you are? Is that what you're saying?
Well, we didn't all move to Canada or anything, but
yet.
No,
I just of course Phil and I are a different generation, so we all had to register for that shit. But they used to run these, were they television ads when we were?
Oh yeah, Scott Baio or something.
What was Scott Baio in? Okay, no, but the line that. It must have been a good ad because I remembered it, but that we used to make fun of the tagline at the end of the ads to get you to go down to the post office and why the post office, whatever. And it was like it. I keep wanting to say it's fun, it's easy, and it's the law. It wasn't fun. It was something else.
Well, that's what we came up with. But I remember I distinctly remember going to the post office because my mom and one of my aunts was like, you don't need to do this. We'll support you. You don't need to do this. But I felt this pressure to do it, because I was worried about going to college.
Range pressure you or
that Sergeant Range, that was different. But I felt the pressure. I think I was worried about getting financial aid or something for college or something, my Pell Grant or something.
There was all sorts of shit they would try and
But
tie to that.
but my aunt and my mom were like, no, you don't need to sign it. We'll back you up. These
No, I
uh,
just remember those ads though.
I remember going there and signing the thing. It's like I I don't know. I don't think I'm going to actually go through with this if it comes down to it. I'll go to Canada, I guess. But with climate change, Canada is looking better, so that's fine. Canada is looking better. There's the title idea.
Canada's looking better. So, one of the things we do on our show, that an unofficial format thing, is we talk about what stuff we're watching or listening to or whatever, that kind of thing. And David, maybe you'd like to share what you've been getting into lately as far as music or television,
Media
or
consumption.
anything. Yeah, that we often talk about TV things, but
All right.
it can be anything.
Now is the resumption of media consumption, a slight dysfunction, and a mental malfunction. What are we watching? Why? What are we watching? Why? What are we watching? Why? What are we watching? Why?
Historically, I haven't been much of a TV person. Going back to the days when I lived in Alaska, when there was a 2-week delay, there was no live TV. Beginning with I got hooked on Breaking Bad, and I just got done watching all the seasons of Better Call Saul. It's prequel.
I'm a big fan of both of those shows. As I've mentioned on our previous episodes, I'm trying to get Phil to watch both of them, but
Yeah.
especially Better Call Saul, because Phil is such a fan of Michael McKean, and it's just a great set of performances. I mean, yeah, it's really a good, complex, sometimes very funny show. Yeah, very much so. That's good.
Compared to Breaking Bad, it's a slow. It moves at a slower pace, but it has
Yes.
all the same elements that made Breaking Bad great.
Yeah, there's some interesting how it's evolved, since it's the same people that write and produce most of the episodes up from each show, and it feels like there are differences, yeah, in the way the pacing is on it, but it's really interesting to see the way that the way that they do the show has evolved between Breaking Bad and Better Call Saul, and they feel similar and yet distinct from each other, which I really enjoy.
I feel
It's
you
not
could
just
watch
like
you could
more
watch
of the
Better
same.
Call Saul, not having watched Breaking Bad. You might catch may not catch some of the the nuances, but you could watch it on its own.
Yeah,
I
I've tried to tell Phil that too, that
I
he
may
could
have to
watch
do
it.
that. All these comedians on Better Call Saul too. What's that about?
Well, it's probably driven partially by Bob Odenkirk. Sorry,
Sure.
I think he has an inertia that brings people along. But yeah, that's a great choice.
But other than Better Call Saul, which I just got done, as far as TV, it's just been New York Mets baseball and Denver Broncos football. What can I say?
That will keep you busy.
We don't have a lot of sports fans on this show, but
Well, I don't know.
no, that's not true.
Matt and Paul are both
Yeah,
both sports fans. So
yeah, but that's like football in
well,
Europe.
Matt is, of course, Matt's a Vikings fan. So
Oops.
Music wise,
Oh no.
As always, I'm kind of all over the place. Listen to a lot of
You might
reggae.
you might have more eclectic music taste than I do. You're sort of I don't know. I've always thought of you as a bridge in that you bring, so you know all these people that this guy is into the Grateful Dead, this guy is into reggae, this guy is into whatever, but you seem to, from my experience, you seem to help these people navigate that and find common ground and make a bridge musically. And I've always, I don't know, I've always appreciated that about you. I tend to think of myself as a rather eclectic sort of consumer, if that's the right word, of music, but appreciator. That's not a word. I mean, I can't think of a genre that you, so who's this guy, Billy Strings or something? No, that's
Billy
not.
Strings.
Yeah, okay. I don't know a lot about Billy Strings, but you're so one of your things is getting people to say, "Hey, check this guy out." And I haven't yet, and I will. But what's the deal with Billy Strings? He was like with Willie Nelson the other day, whatever. But
An
what's that
amazing,
about?
amazing, amazing guitarist who can feel right at home. Well, his roots are bluegrass, and he can be right at home with the classic, bluegrass artists
Right.
to showing up on stage and doing things with some of the contemporary artists who some I'm not even familiar with today.
Well, yeah, we're getting old.
Yeah.
It's hard to keep up with all these people.
I
Billy
got to see
Strings.
him. I got to see him last summer at Red Rocks with his
Oh, Red
collaboration with
Rocks.
Bill
Holy
Preston of the Grateful Dead. Billy and the
Oh,
Kids,
Red
and that
Rocks.
was
What is it about Red Rocks? There's an energy there. I don't know what it is, but it's a
it's
weird place.
it's the most beautiful place to ever see a show. You know,
Ah,
if when folks come to Colorado, if there's a show worth going to, I would encourage anyone to check out a show at Red Rocks.
well, Paul S. I don't know if he still listens to the show, but he's been a special guest.
He's
He,
gone to
d-
shows there.
oh
I
yeah,
also one of the it makes very obvious how the Twin Cities area does not have a good outdoor venue.
no, what the zoo?
Yeah, it's not really the same thing, but not
No,
a
that's nothing like Red Rocks.
no. They have a nice little amphitheater or something like that. They're
Yeah, but it's not
actors,
Red
but
Rocks.
we don't have a venue, a really good one like that.
No, Red Rocks is. There's nothing like Red Rocks anywhere though.
There's a lot of natural acoustics that go to with Red Rocks, and then as you're the scene, mountains, and you can see this. It makes for a powerful visual experience that goes well with the music.
It's a spiritual place. I think we could say a
We could.
a sacred place. Now one of my heroes, Steve Martin. I remember I didn't get to see him there, of course. I was too young, but I watched a video. But when he played at Red Rocks, that's a different era. Comedians there, but fine. Who's going to perform there now as a comedian? Now, Steve Martin got to a different level. Fine.
So I've been watching. I just recently started watching this Yellowstone show. You guys heard of
Okay,
that?
I heard of it.
The one. It's been around for a few years.
Well, Dave likes Westerns.
It's sort of a western. Yeah, I don't. It's an interesting modernization of. I almost think of it as a western crossed with a gangster show,
Ooh,
like The
okay.
Sopranos, crossed with like a show like Dynasty or Dallas.
Oh my God.
It has some soap opera elements to it as
Okay,
well,
okay.
and because really, it has a lot of people that are hard to sympathize with.
Yeah.
So, like the setup is it's the big white ranchers the Native Americans and the kind of rich developer people. This is in Montana, and
In modern age?
yeah, it takes place in current day.
Oh, well,
And
yeah.
all
You got
kind of
Ted Turner as a character.
does he show up?
Ted Turner owns like 1/4 of Montana, doesn't he?
There's probably a stand-in for Ted Turner there, but it's a very. I mean, it is very clear about how well all of the sides are corrupt in one way or another. I think is the message the show is trying to say.
Well,
But
there's some
like
truth to that.
Kevin Costner is basically Don Corleone, who runs a ranch and is very wealthy and has this guy that works for him who I've been jokingly calling the cowboy Luca Brasi or something like that.
It's a cowboy mafia thing.
It's a cowboy mafia. It totally is.
What?
It's just crazy. So they do some crazy shit. Like they just get rid of people, and it's the same phenomenon I noticed when we used to watch Longmire. I used to talk about that show, which is still really fun.
That was on my list to watch.
That's a great show too. Very entertaining, but it takes place in these sparsely populated areas that there would be nobody left living there if that many people died all the time because of all the killings. And this show is almost that bad with the body count, even though it's Montana and not rural Wyoming. But it's an interesting show, and there's good people in it. It's made by this guy called named Taylor Sheridan. He's the showrunner of it, and he did this really pretty good movie I liked. Whoops, hello. Dog's barking.
Hi, Birdie.
Called Hell or High Water. It's the show with this movie with Jeff Bridges in it that was really good. He wrote that.
Oh, yeah.
And he made this show, and it's well done, although some of it is really over the top and silly. So I'm kind of on the fence about it, but that's what we're watching at the moment, and trying to get to the end of Better Call Saul, as David and I were talking about before.
I've watched the first episode of Breaking Bad, and I kind of feel like I need to watch all. I know both of you have told me I don't need to, but I kind of feel like I need to watch all of those before I go into Breaking Bad. I mean, sorry, Better Call Saul. And but I might have to do a time jump there too and just go into Better Call Saul, because Carol Burnett, don't tell me what happens, but somehow Carol Burnett's in this show, and she's a comedy goddess. What's going on? How did that happen? And I don't want you to tell me even. Why did I ask that? Sad. But Carol Burnett, oh my God. I got to watch that.
You might just have to give it a shot, Phil.
I might have to skip Breaking Bad.
Yeah, you can do it. It's okay. I mean, you can always go back and watch it later too.
No,
Watch it in chronological order.
I'm a completist. Well, okay, folks.
Better Call Saul takes place before Breaking Bad in the story. Remember, so
true. I like the way you're thinking, and I appreciate that.
And it's not like watching the Star Wars prequels before Episode 4.
Oh God.
It's not, you're not sacrificing anything to do it in time in the timeline.
Why isn't Carol Burnett in any of the Star Wars or Marvel universe? Why not have Carol Burnett in all these things? She should be everywhere. Fine. Maybe we'll end on that. We need more Carol Burnett's.
We do. Well, David, thank you very much for coming on tonight or today, whatever it is.
Oh my goodness. I guess it's night here. Evening.
Sun's beginning to. It's a little bit. Clouds are gathering here. Sunset.
You're going to have 6 feet of snow pretty soon, there, Dave.
If it happens here, then it'll melt shortly. Unlike
I know.
Yeah, rub it in.
Oh my God. Although Dave will visit Minneapolis, probably at the time we have the worst. Dave, thank you very much.
Thank you for
Yeah, it's great to hear from you. Yeah.
Yeah.
And here's the song!
Life. 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 Some folks say life is what you make it. Bob Marley say, wake up and live. And I say there's a little truth in all that. But I want to add that and say that everyone is 2 steps away from living what many may consider the mundane to living what I call the unusual life. The unusual life. Like, take here, if you were born and raised in Western culture, particularly here in the US of A, one is expected to grow up, attend school, get your 4-year degree, or maybe go to a trade school, get married, buy a home, and raise 2.3 kids. And you know, there's nothing wrong with that if that's your choice. And some folks may even grow up in the beginning of life thinking that's exactly what they're going to do. Then something happens, a traumatic event, or maybe a book that a person read that changed their whole perspective on life. Next thing you know, they're on a different path in life. He or she took those 1 or 2 steps from the mundane and began to live the unusual life. Countries do the same. Because, you know, countries are a collection of individuals. And even from the indigenous time to the time of Western settlers, this piece of land was primarily an agrarian farmland, people living off the land. Countries took 1, 2, 3 small steps to where we're here in the 21st century. And the United States of America is an empire. The unusual life. 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 Some folks say life is what you make it. Bob Marley say wake up and live. And yes, there's a little truth in all of that. But I say everyone is only 1 or 2 steps away from living the mundane to living what is called the unusual life.